Well, I want to thank you for coming to visit the United States, and I appreciate the work that you do in Israel. You represent many communities in Israel, especially in Judea and Samaria. And these are areas that sometimes people in the rest of the world don't understand like they should. Could you explain the importance of the communities that you represent?
I'll tell you in one sentence, okay? Some people accuse us, the settlers, the settlements, being the obstacle for peace. My argument is completely on the contrary. We are the solution for the peace. And I've discussed in great depth with your devoted and highly motivated team to bring them different examples of how the neighborhood relationship brings to coexistence. And I know that that might not be the final answer for all the questions, but if we don't start building a trust and knowing relationship, there will be no definite future. And I gave somebody today to try and explain it in a more theoretical way. I said to them, it's a bit like marriage. Those who come and say, we expect you to have a peace agreement in 3 months. We want you to reach a solution in all the topics that have been open for the last 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 120 years, 150 years. We expect you to resolve everything in the next year. They don't have patience. They don't see it even as a relationship. Because if you think about it, when you see a girl that you want to go into a relationship with, so you will start dating her, then you will decide you want to get engaged, and only then you will decide you want to get married. And sometimes the world thinks that they can force us into this permanent relationship without building the trust and the knowing one another. And that's what I'm trying to do now, trying to find ways as to how we can build that trust and that relationship for a long-standing relationship.
Excellent. One thing that bothers me is that sometimes people in the United Nations or in other parts of the world have a double standard. They hold Israel to a certain standard that they say must be complied with, but they don't apply that to any other country. They put Israel in a category by itself. So when it comes to settlements, they put demands on Israel that they don't put on other countries. Do you see that unfairness like I see it?
Definitely, okay. But my exam is when I look in the mirror. And when I look in the mirror and I know how the IDF acts, and I know what acts my government is doing.
Israel Defense Force.
The Israel Defense
IDF.
Force, right. And when I know what my government is doing, and even human things, like go and check out how many households were attached to running water in 1967 and how many households are attached to running water today. And you will see how much improvement the so-called occupation and the so-called illegal acts, how much good they've brought to the Palestinian residents. So people say, oh, you're not telling the truth, or you're cherry picking on the people that represent you. I have no problem with that. You know why? Because we had two prime ministers in Israel, Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert, offering between 92 to 96% of the land for that illusion of a two-state solution. They rejected it. Why did they reject it? Because many of them want to stay part of Israel. Now, that doesn't serve the purpose of those who advocate for a two-state solution.
Right.
And they don't want to hear what the people tell them. And that's a question of leadership. And you are in the middle of your campaign, and we need people who know how to listen, how to internal what they've heard, and then to go and say to the people, not necessarily what the people want to hear, but what the leader thinks is the best future for the people. And when you look left and right, sometimes it's hard to identify the true leaders. And judging by what you're leading here in Washington, what we hear in Israel, I went on the plane especially to come and meet you. I've met some of your staff in Israel. Some of them I'm still waiting to see in Israel. And I've read about what you've done and what you're doing. And we hear and we follow. And it warms our heart to know that we have such good allies. And that's the main
Excellent.
purpose I've come here today.
Excellent. You have many friends in Congress. You have many people in the House and Senate who support Israel, who support a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. And we are distressed when we hear members of the international community, or sometimes even in our own administration, criticizing Israel and holding Israel to a unfairly, unrealistically double standard that is not fair, that is not right. For instance, someone will complain about perceived human rights abuses, and they ignore all the steps that Israel takes to provide water and food and jobs and medical care and basic necessities of life to those living around them, the Palestinians and others. Could you talk about that a little bit?
I think it all can be summed up in a nutshell is people don't want to hear the facts. And if we want to go under the saying that too many facts kill a good story, that's our challenge, to spread as many facts as possible, because we have endless examples in every front. You just tackle me and I'll tell you. We were accused of having a siege over Gaza for 7-8 years. We kept on producing to the whole world pictures of convoys of trucks providing goods to Gaza under siege. We were accused of photoshopping. We were accused of producing the same pictures over and over again. We were accused that the convoy never goes into Gaza. We couldn't have asked for a better proof than when they started firing the rockets over Israel. All of a sudden, you found under Gaza a whole new city that was built underground. So there was no shortage of working equipment, there was no shortage of working supplies, there was no shortage of workers, there was no shortage of food to feed those workers, and there was no shortage of medical treatment to treat the people that were injured. But instead of taking all that equipment that Israel actually took into Gaza and built factories, hotels, schools, they decided to prepare themselves for the next attack. And that's what they did. You want another example? Go to the northern border. There's a battle going on in Syria. We're completely not involved. We're involved in one dimension. Injured and wounded Syrians who have no legal rights in Israel, don't pay any tax money, come on a daily basis. I think up till now we've already crossed the figure of 10,000 wounded that Israeli hospital is treating free of charge with my tax money, because that's what we believe. When we look in the mirror, we want to know that we're doing good.
Yeah.
But they don't want to know these facts,
Yeah.
and that's our job to spread them.
Something that really bothers me about the Obama administration is that they want to pressure Benjamin Netanyahu and the entire Israel government, the entire nation of Israel, into making large concessions of land giveaways. Giving huge areas of land to a Palestinian nation that if that ever happened, it would create tremendous security problems. It would reduce the living area for those who live in Israel to such a tiny area. It would possibly endanger the Ben Gurion airport in Tel Aviv. It would just expose the living areas of Israel, like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, to those who wish to do harm. Fortunately, there are many Palestinians who just want to live at peace and take care of their family and have jobs, but there are those who wish to do harm. And I believe that these large land giveaways, if they ever happen, would put Israel at tremendous security risk. What do you think about that?
For those who like to go to the casino, they can carry on with these plans.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take human being lives and put them on the roulette.
Mm-hmm.
We've done that. We've done that. We were forced, more or less. We agreed, more or less. Look at it in whatever way you want, to withdraw from Gaza. We withdrawn from Gaza under the illusion.
And it got worse.
Under the illusion that if there will be no Jewish trace in the Gaza Strip, there will be peace and quiet in the southern border. In order to be so particular with that illusion, The Israeli government dug people out of their graves in order not to leave there anything. The outcome is known. A day after, they started shooting missiles. Why did they shoot missiles a day after? Because they haven't finished with their claims. They want one thing. They want the destruction of the state of Israel. But here it's important for me to stress one point. Because I think the majority of the Palestinians truly and honestly want to live in peace. Why do I say that? Because when I drive up the road in Judea and Samaria, which has treated the disputed territories, which has treated the conflict area, okay? There's a Jewish car or an Israeli car driven by a Jewish driver driving next to a Palestinian car. They reach a red traffic light, they both stop. They both want to be law observant. If it would have been a conflict zone, if it would have been a disputed area, you would have seen those cars bashing into one another like crashing cars in a Luna Park. But the majority of the people want to go into their cars in the morning, reach their working place, earn money, and bring it back home. Now, where's the problem? And it happens all over the world. We have a small, tiny, extreme minority which is violent. They dictate to the majority what to think, what to believe, and where to spend the money. And we, as leaders, we need to remember not to give the attention to those who do the trouble, to the small minority that want to try and reach and gain what they want through violence, but to strengthen the majority. And there are enough partners who want to seek to live in peace. And our goal is to try and strengthen them and try and set the foundations to build the trust that maybe in the future some agreement can be reached, but that's completely not on the table today.
Well, there are many people in Congress, there are many people in the United States, both Christians like myself and people of all faiths, that pray for the peace of Israel, the peace of Jerusalem. And they want all people to live at peace and put these conflicts behind them. And I know that you are going to be part of the solution. You're not part of the problem.
So